right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take Sharp and Shapiro. Man, it's good to be back in studio on a Monday. It's like therapy for me. You know, I have to vent. It's what I do here. It's like a free therapy session for Shapiro. Anyway, welcome back to the program. As I mentioned earlier, coming up here at 10:30, we'll have a live press conference. We have someone out there covering it, Chris Wynn, this horrific car accident that took place the day after Christmas. But, you know, it's been a while since I caught up with this guy. He is attorney Michael Avenatti, and there is so much to get to in the news, so much to go over. Michael, how was your Christmas?
It was excellent, gentlemen. How are you guys doing today?
Doing all right.
Awesome.
Feel refreshed, Michael. I want to start. I want to start by, you know, first segment, Michael. We were talking a little bit about Don Imus, and I said, listen, obviously the guy had a huge following. He had a great career in radio, but he was also a blatant racist. He said racist things on the air. You remember the nappy-headed hose comment, you know, but that's not the only thing he said. He has a history of racism. Explain to me, Michael, and I want your opinion on this, but explain to me why there are so many people out there, so many white people in radio and TV that are praising this man. I just don't understand it. Give me your thoughts on this. To me, Don Imus was just a horrible human being.
Well, I mean, I agree with you that he had made a number of racist comments, completely inappropriate comments over the years. But, you know, I think that in American society, when someone passes away, when they die, you know, a lot of people look to see the good in them. They praise them for their positive accomplishments, and their negative traits or what they engaged in gets minimized in death. I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing. I think you see it, you know, across the entire spectrum, whether somebody's on the right or the left. I think it's pretty consistent. I think that's what you're seeing this morning.
Yeah, I guess I understand that. I just refuse to go on the radio and say this was a great man who did so many great things for so many people. I'm just calling it like it is. Yes, he did raise some money for cancer research. He fought cancer himself. I feel for his family and friends. I don't feel for him. But that's just my opinion. That's just how I feel, Michael. But moving on, let's talk quickly. We're going to get to, obviously, what's going on with this Senate trial and Donald Trump. But before we get to that, I want to get to some other issues with you, Michael. This Texas church shooting, right? 2 dead, 1 critically injured. There were 4 or 5 people in this church that were legally carrying. And, you know, because of that, there's no question. You can't deny it. More people would have died. But with that being said, everybody on the right-wing talk shows are saying, see, this is what we need. We need more guns. More guns are going to save lives. Nobody's talking about red flag laws. Nobody's talking about how this guy got a weapon. Nobody's talking about assault weapons on the right. It kind of frustrates me a little bit, Michael. While I'm really happy that there were several people in this church that, you know, executed this guy and that we're legally carrying, I really don't think more guns are the only things that we should be talking about here. I don't necessarily think that's the answer. What do you make of this story?
Well, look, I agree with you. And so everyone on the right is going to say, see, this is a reason why everybody should be able to carry. This incident only lasted 6 seconds because you had a number of people carrying. If it wasn't for that, there would have been more lives lost. I think that's a faulty premise for the following reasons. First of all, if we had complete gun control, the guy may not have even had a gun in church to begin with,
exactly,
to even start the rampage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you can't say that the lack of gun control actually helped avoid the loss of more lives. I could make an argument that the lack of gun control actually cost 2 lives. Forget about whether there would have been more lives
there
lost.
You go.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know the circumstances under which this individual got the gun, what kind of gun he used, et cetera. I don't know that yet, but I think it's a faulty argument.
I agree. I agree with you completely. I mean, why did it even happen in the first place? And you know, the idea, you know, as you know, as many people want to say that white supremacy is not out there. We see domestic terrorism all the time. And yes, the gentleman in this synagogue was an African American. He has just pleaded not guilty to stabbing 5 people at a Hanukkah party with the machete while being completely silent. And then he douses himself in bleach. We've seen a rise in hate crime like perhaps we've never seen before, at least not in my lifetime. What, if any, responsibility do you put on the Trump administration, and what do you make of these types of incidents that it seems like we're talking about on a weekly basis?
Well, I think anybody that tries to claim that Trump has not had an impact on the rise of hatred in America and hatred of various groups, I just think that's foolish. I think it's without any basis whatsoever, and it ignores the reality of the situation. Look, a lot of this starts at the top. You know, did Trump put the machete in this guy's hands? Did he call out for violence against those of the Jewish faith? Of course not. But the fact of the matter is that when you have a president of the United States who behaves in the manner in which he behaves, incites violence in many ways, seeks to divide America, seeks to pit us against them, it's no surprise that that's going to trickle down to many citizens and others in the United States, and it makes it acceptable almost to carry out these acts. It starts at the top.
I do think at times that Trump's rhetoric and his approach to situations and the things he says, they kind of speak to the extremist mindsets. I think he speaks to extremists, and when they're very, very impressionable, things like this can take place. I agree with that.
Yeah, no question about it. All right. Well, we all agree on that, Michael. Now let's talk about this Senate trial. I wanted to get your reaction to this. I haven't been here in a little while. I've been on vacation. But, Mitch McConnell's statements that he made over a week ago in regards to saying that he is going to be coordinating with the White House when it comes to this trial. As an attorney, Michael Avenatti, is he breaking the law by saying he's going to do that? That is not when he took the oath of this office, Mitch McConnell, he knows that he's breaking the law, is he not?
Well, I don't know that he's breaking the law per se, but, as an attorney, and I'm not just an attorney, I'm a guy that has a lot of trial experience, and, not all attorneys have trial experience. Let me just tell you, I find this to be completely unacceptable, unheard of. It's almost as if you have jurors announcing prior to a trial even beginning that they've already decided how they're going to vote. And they're not going to actually listen to the evidence. They've already made up their mind. If anybody came into a court of law and actually said that, they would be tossed off the jury. If any judge announced at the beginning of a case that he or she had decided the defendant's guilt or innocence before hearing any evidence, that would be completely improper and grounds for disqualification of the judge. That's not how this process is supposed to work. I mean, McConnell and others have basically set up a situation where they've already announced there's not going to be a real trial. This is going to be a rigged, bogus trial in the Senate. And that's why, and I've been saying this for weeks now, and in light of the news that comes out recently within the last 24 hours about Pompeo and others supposedly begging the president to release this military aid and him refusing to do so, this is new information that has just come to light. This is exactly why I think that Pelosi is correct in holding the charges in the House. The House should continue to investigate. Schiff should continue to call additional witnesses and get to the bottom of this before these charges are turned over to the Senate. And at no point in time should the charges be turned over until everyone has assurance that there's going to be a real trial.
And Michael, I want to give you some credit there because you came on this show a few weeks ago. You told us that Nancy Pelosi was going to do this. You said it on the show that she was going to be withholding these charges for a little bit, not turning them over. And I agree with you. I think she is doing the right thing and doing it for the right reasons. So Donald Trump in the last few days also named who he thinks the whistleblower is going to be. There's a reason why there are laws and rules put in place to protect the whistleblower. Clearly, the president, once again, is this not another example, Michael, of the president thinking that he's above the law?
Well, I think there's no question that it's another example of that. But, guys, we are so far down. If we just take a step back and really look at the totality of the situation and the circumstances relating to Trump's presidency, you may disagree with him about his policies. You may agree with him about his policies. You may think it's great that he wants to make America great again. But I wish more people would take a step back and think about what has really happened to the office of the presidency over the last 3 years. I mean, we are so far down the rabbit hole relating to what is acceptable conduct and not acceptable conduct. I don't know that we're ever going to return to any sense of decency or normalcy. I am concerned that this is the new normal. And I will tell you that if he is reelected in 2020, I don't think there's ever going to be an opportunity for us to turn back the clock. And I don't care if you're on the right, the left, the center, where you line up. People should be disturbed by that. The president of the United States should not be engaging in this type of conduct. It is not okay.
No, I agree with you. He is attorney Michael Avenatti. Coming up in our next segment, we will take some phone calls and we will open up the phone lines at 257-5396. Okay, so I want to talk.
Let me just say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just add something. If I could.
Sure. Go ahead.
This type of behavior and this demeaning of the office of the presidency is not okay, regardless of whether you're a Republican or Democrat. The idea that there is a large segment of the American population that thinks it's okay because the economy is good and taxes are low is equally disturbing to me, because the problem is that this conduct can have significant long-reaching effects in our culture, in American society, and especially on the international stage. And by the time you realize what has happened, it may be too late. And I wish more people would actually think about this, as opposed to just saying, oh, the economy is good and taxes are low, so we're going to let Trump get away with whatever the hell he wants to do.
Michael, you make such a great point, because I talk to Republicans every day about this stuff. And I always make the point, look, there are reasonable Republicans and there are unreasonable Republicans. The unreasonable Republicans do not care if the president lies. They do not care about the president's conduct. All they care about is, well, the economy's pretty good. Unemployment numbers are down. And then there are reasonable Republicans that, even though I might disagree with them, they say they're going to vote for Donald Trump again, and they hate the rhetoric. They hate the things he say. They think he's a horrible guy, but they like some of his policies. So let me ask you this question, Michael. And this could probably help a lot of Democrats out there that get into debates with Republicans all the time when it comes to Donald Trump. If you have somebody walk up to you right now, Michael, and says, defending President Trump and saying, look, don't you care about the economy? Don't you care about the stock market? Don't you care about those low unemployment numbers? How would you respond to a Republican like that in talking about Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, I would try to use an analogy, whether it relates to, their child or their spouse. I mean, let me ask you this question, guys. If your spouse is earning a good living and providing, a nice home for you to live in and a nice car to drive, does that mean your spouse can engage in whatever behavior he or she wants? Does that mean your spouse can cheat on you at will?
That's such a great analogy.
Could be sleeping with all of the neighbors, can be embarrassing you in the neighborhood, in your community, just simply because he or she is providing a roof over your head and a nice car to drive? I doubt it. If your kid is getting all straight A's in school and is delivering in school, does that mean your kid can stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning?
I love it.
Engage in rampant drug use, call you all kinds of names, show disrespect to you and his
Wait, are you talking about Biff? Are you talking about Don Jr.? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I mean, but it's the same. It's the same concept. I mean, because you're delivering good grades doesn't mean you get to engage in all kinds of abhorrent behavior.
No, Michael, you're right.
But it's not just Republicans, like you said, that you would ask that question. I mean, it's anyone who's a fiscal conservative, because the things that they look for, that they value, are what you're discussing. It's all about, do I have shelter? Is the economy good? Is my family taken care of? Do I have my money for? I mean, for example, the amount of money spent on Christmas was up 5% this last year. That's a big deal, and you can't say that Donald Trump's economy has nothing to do with that.
Michael, go ahead, respond to that.
No. Look, I'm not saying that the economy doesn't have anything to do with that, and I'm not saying that Trump deserves some credit for the economy, not all of the credit. Just like I would say that when the economy was doing well under Clinton and Obama, that they weren't entirely responsible for the economy. But that doesn't excuse away everything else. And that's the issue that I have. There's other Republicans that could be holding that office who would be just as successful with the economy, and they would not be endangering American fortitude on the international stage and the safety of Americans day in and day out. And I'm telling you, that's exactly what's happening. People don't understand. This is a powder keg. This is a very dangerous situation. Our allies and our enemies look to America on a daily basis. We do not come across as a competent, reasonable, measured superpower. And, God forbid that international situation develops under Trump's watch, because I don't think the outcome is going to be very positive by any stretch of the imagination. And by the time that people realize what has happened here, it could very well be too late. But all because you have low taxes and you have a good economy, that doesn't mean that this guy should get a pass.
I agree.
And when you say an international situation, do you mean like the Cold War, something along those lines?
No. I mean something more significant than a Cold War, an international crisis where this guy's going to have to make a decision on a moment's notice, and that decision could ultimately decide whether thousands of Americans or others around the world live or die. That's the kind of situation that I'm talking about. I mean, anybody that thinks that our enemies are not watching what is happening here in America with how unhinged and incompetent Donald Trump is. You know, our enemies, they don't give a shit about the economy or whether taxes are low in America. The world order depends on the United States being a world superpower and being viewed as competent, measured, and strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that those factors are seen by the rest of the world right now as it relates to America.
I tend to agree. Okay, so this is I wanted to play you a little bit of audio, Michael. So this is our president, our commander-in-chief, speaking to the troops over, this was on Christmas, talking about Melania and a card that he got for her. I just want you to listen to this and then get your response to it afterwards.
What did you get Mrs. Trump for Christmas this year?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, I really should say a very beautiful card. You know, I'm working on a lot of things. I got her a beautiful card that actually I had a number of them picked, and I picked the nicest one. A lot of love, and we love our family, and we love each other, and we've had a great relationship, like you do, hopefully, with your spouses. We've had a great relationship. And I think I'll answer that by saying I'm still working on a Christmas present. Is that okay?
Yeah.
There's a little time left.
Yeah,
Not too much, but there's a little time.
All right, yeah, he's still working on it. Great relationship, even though they sleep in separate beds. Michael, what do you make of that? Do you even believe him that he even got her a card?
Well, I don't know whether he got her a card or not, but look, I do believe that he's working on this year's Christmas present right after he works on the one for 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14, and 2013.
Well, I think he buys Christmas presents by decades, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to drop 10 on it.
I think he does. Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Michael Moore, because I've always respected Michael Moore, and Michael Moore was one of the few people back in 2016 that predicted that Donald Trump was going to defeat Hillary Clinton. So Michael Moore is speaking out again. Here's what he has to say about the 2020 elections, who he thinks is going to win. Have a listen to this.
I think if the election were held today, Hillary won by 3 million popular votes. I believe whoever the Democrat is next year is going to win by 4 to 5 million popular votes. There's no question in my mind that people who stayed home, who sat on the bench, they're going to pour out in California, New York, and but also in Texas and whatever. I mean, places that Trump will probably win, but yet there's going to be a much higher percentage of people voting against him. The problem is that he will, if the vote were today, I believe he would win the electoral states that he would need, because living out there, I will tell you, his level of support has not gone down 1 inch. In fact, I'd say it's even more rabid than it was before, because they're afraid now. They're afraid he could lose because they watched his behavior. So they are voracious in their appetite for Donald Trump.
All right, Michael, do you agree with Michael Moore and his statement there?
Well, I do agree with his statement, and it's consistent with what I've been saying on this show now for months. Although I'll tell you where I disagree. I don't think it's going to be 4 to 5 million. I think that Trump will lose the popular vote between 5 and 6.5 million. And it would not surprise me if it was over 6 million votes. Honestly, I have preached on this show that it's all about the swing states. I've identified them time and time again. I can't tell you how many times we've talked about it on this show. It's all about the swing states. I've said that in my travels to these swing states, which were extensive in the last year or so, that these folks view Donald Trump differently than many of us do on the coast. This isn't about New York or D.C. or California. This is about those key swing states. And that's really what it's going to come down to. You got to be able to appeal to voters in those key swing states. I've talked about the fact this isn't going to be a revolutionary election, even though many of my fellow Democrats would like it to be. It's not going to happen. In the history of the United States, no president who ran for re-election with a good economy has ever been defeated. And if you're going to defeat him, it's going to have to be a marginal, incremental change. And that's why Joe Biden has to be the nominee.
So another person we've discussed pretty much in depth is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was campaigning for Bernie Sanders in California
and in Vegas, by the way.
And the head of the Democratic leadership group in California actually called her the future of the Democratic Party, and specifically pointed out that Pete Buttigieg was not. Do you think that that's the case moving forward?
Well, I hope not, because I've been, look, I like the Congresswoman. I think she's really interjected a lot of energy into the party. I am in no way, shape, or form ready to turn over the keys to the Democratic Party to AOC. I think that would be a critical mistake. I think she's out of touch with the majority of America. I think that would be a critical mistake by the Democratic Party. I'm sure she was popular among many listeners and many people in New York and California. But you talk about winning in the swing states and you talk about appealing to those voters, AOC is not the answer.
I would tend to agree with you on that one, and I can't stand it when people think that people say that she is the spokesperson for the Democratic Party.
And I would argue that she's more of a socialist than a Democrat.
Yeah, I just don't think she speaks for all Democrats. All right, Michael, here's what I want to do. I want to talk a little bit about Joe Biden when we come back. He is walking back some comments he made about a subpoena. I'm going to play some audio for you when we come back, and then I'm going to want you to respond to that. And I am also going to open up the phone lines as I promised I would. The number to call if you want to join us, Michael Avenatti is our special guest on the line. That number to call is 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you have a question or comment for any of us in studio or Attorney Michael Avenatti, give us a call. Again, that number is 702-257-5396, and we will open up those phone lines when we come back as well. Plenty of other questions to get to, of course, with Michael Avenatti as well. Canada is cutting this Trump cameo. They already did in the Home Alone 2 movie. We're going to talk a little bit about this. Some sad news about John Lewis, pancreatic cancer. We will get to that as well, and I want to talk about this possible Joe Biden subpoena. Would he comply or not? We'll get to that with Michael Avenatti coming up next as well. Again, that number to call if you have a question or comment, give us a buzz. Again, that number is 702-257-5396. Again, 702-257-5396. Your questions or comments, we will take all of them when we come back. We're going to take a quick break. We will be back right after this. Our guest on the line, Michael Avenatti. Questions, phone calls. You're listening to The Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
Hi, it's Tori DeVito. In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music just like other families do over sports, camping, or other interests. And we talked. Little everyday conversations from silly to serious that built a foundation over time. Honest conversations, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic.
Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life. And I was so grateful that you and Mom had become these sober, stable people who were always there for me.
I wanted you to know from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, whether it's music or anything else. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hearing loss is a growing health issue, but did you know that an estimated 1.1 billion young people worldwide are at risk of developing the condition? Limit your exposure to loud noises and use ear protection when attending sporting events or concerts. Also, limit your earbud headphones to no more than 60 minutes at a time and at 60% of the volume. And talk to your primary care physician or other health professional to get a hearing test. Go to www.hearingloss.org. A public service message from the Hearing Loss Association of America, High Health Innovations, and this station.
Hi, this is Trooper Chelsea Stunkel with the Nevada Highway Patrol, reminding drivers that with the recent legalization of recreational use of marijuana, it is still a form of impairment when you get behind the wheel. So please don't drive impaired. If you drive high, you will get a DUI.
The only FM news talk station in the Valley. 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN Las Vegas, a Beasley Media Group station. Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro, 101.5 FM, 720 AM. Also streaming online. If you want to see our pretty mugs, we are on YouTube right now. Check it out, the Vegas Take page. And our very special guest on the line is attorney Michael Avenatti. I promised I would get to some of your phone calls. We have a few phone lines open. If you want to give us a buzz, 702-257-5396, 702-257-5396. Why don't we start off with Brady? Brady, you are on with Michael Avenatti. Go.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. You guys don't seem to have too much praise for those parishioners that stood up and blasted that guy in the church, and I'm finding it really hard. What would have been your solution when somebody rose up in the church?
Michael,
started killing people. What would you have done?
Michael, go ahead. Michael, you want to respond to that? Okay, I'm not sure if we have Michael there. Well, Brady, I'll tell you something. I'll respond to that. I made it very clear in my comments, and maybe you weren't listening. I am happy that there were people in that church that had weapons. I am happy that they executed that horrific human being that went in there to try to kill innocent people. If you were listening, I specifically said that, and in a perfect world, I wish everybody would be in a situation like that. But with that being said, what we also need to look at is how he received that weapon, how he got that weapon. There needs to be red flag laws put in effect, and it doesn't change my stance on assault weapons because it is tell me if I'm wrong, Brady, but I don't think anyone had an AR-15 that walked into that church. It was regular weapons that police officers used that executed this guy. You don't need to have AR-15s in there, number one. I have no problem with responsible gun owners going into places like that, whether it's a Walmart or whether it's a church. I have no problem with that. But you should also be asking the question, how did he get the gun? Could red flag laws could have helped in that situation? Did he purchase it legally? So why don't you ask those questions as well?
Because I'm proud of the guys in the Texas governor that made it legal for parishioners to carry guns.
I just said I don't have a problem with that. You're talking in circles. Answer my question now. I answered yours. I specifically answered your question. I'm happy those people were in that church. They're heroes. They saved lives. However, 2 people still lost their lives, and maybe if red flag laws were put in effect, and maybe if it was more difficult for that guy to purchase a gun, 2 people wouldn't be dead. Why don't you talk about that too?
Honestly, the people that got the gun, that's after the fact.
No, it's not after the fact. No, it's not. You don't know that. Do you know how this guy got his gun? Do you have any? What do you mean after the fact? The guy walked in there with a gun.
Let me say one thing. First responders in half the cases of fatalities like this that happen all over don't get there till after the fact.
You're speaking in circles.
Armed up.
You're speaking in circles once again. I just told you because I believe in the right to carry. Please listen. Please listen because I'm going to say it.
Why don't you believe in the right to carry, Brian?
Okay. Are you that dumb or do you have earplugs? I'm going to say it now for the 4th time. So listen one more time, Brady, for your right-wing ears, okay? I am happy that those people walked in there with guns and they are responsible gun owners. I have called them heroes 3 times. I don't know what part of that you don't understand, and I think the reason why you keep talking in circles because you can't answer my question, and my question was very, very simple. Why not have red flag laws put in place? Why not make it more difficult for like this maniac who walked in there with a gun in the church? Make it more difficult for people like that to carry guns. And the third thing I said, which you haven't addressed, which isn't shocking to me, is not one of those responsible gun owners had an AR-15 or an assault weapon. Why don't you respond to what I'm saying instead of speaking in circles? I've said it 5 times now.
Okay, well, I'll respond to that. It's pretty hard to put an AR-15 in your pants. How is that?
Okay, so your point?
My point is that red flag laws are after the fact. These people are...
What do you mean red flag laws are after the fact? What are you talking about? This guy could have a history of mental illness. What are you talking about? What do you mean red flag laws are after the fact? If this guy had a mental illness, if he had any issues, if he had committed any types of heinous crimes, and I'm not even talking about a felony. If he had anything on his record, that a red flag law could have prevented this guy from legally buying a gun. So with all due respect, what the hell are you talking about?
So how come nobody called in on this fine gentleman that should have been red flagged? Why didn't nobody call in on him, Brian?
Why
didn't it work too well, did it?
Why didn't anybody call in the Parkland shooting? Well, guess what? Somebody did call in because the police officer. Yeah, the police officer.
Don't work.
Excuse me, police were. You're wrong. Red flag laws would work in the situation in the Parkland shooter. Police were called out to his home 48 times, and yet he was still legally allowed to purchase a gun. Let me ask you a question. If you're married, Brady, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's just say wherever your wife works, somebody in the workplace threatens her life and says they're going to bring a gun to work the next day. Would you be okay with that person purchasing a weapon legally that night? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question.
If they're threatening somebody with a gun, no, you're not supposed to be doing that.
I didn't say. I didn't
threat.
say threaten somebody with a gun. Listen again, because once again, you're not paying attention. I said if somebody in the workplace where your wife works at says they were going to kill your wife, a verbal threat, would you be okay with that man or woman purchasing a gun that night? It is a yes or no question.
No, because that man would be in jail. Because
you're absolutely, you're wrong. You're wrong. No, you're wrong.
I would be back there.
You're wrong.
I would be throwing some hot ones right into that son of a bitch's head.
Okay. First of all, you're wrong, and you're not factual with what you just said. If you threaten somebody's life, you could be out of jail within a few hours. It is not necessarily a felony. So you're wrong. That person would not be in jail for a couple days. But let's just use your stupid theory for a second. Let's just say, hypothetically, that guy got 2 days in prison. As soon as he gets out of prison, and please answer the question, are you okay with that person buying a weapon? Yes or no?
Yeah, let him buy one. Because
okay, so you're a moron. Okay, Brady, bye-bye. See, that shows you the stupidity of people. I just gave a situation where somebody could, God forbid, threaten your wife of killing your wife, and Brady just said as soon as that person gets out of jail, he would be okay with that person buying a gun. Do we see how some people have such a low IQ that they can't even answer a question honestly? I gave that in the easiest possible scenario, and he couldn't answer the question. Do we see how dumb some people are? It is incredible.
Well, you could have asked him after this person, finishes and successfully completes a battery of mental evaluation tests.
That's different. But that's not the scenario I put forth to Brady. It is incredible to me. I believe we have Michael Avenatti back on the line. Michael, everybody wants to talk about the heroes that were in the church, and I have no problem with that. The 4 or 5 people that were able to take down this individual. But why is it that nobody wants to talk about red flag laws? Why is it that nobody wants to talk about how we could have prevented this madman from going into that church in the first place?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. It's the same issue that I raised, at the beginning of the show or when I came on. It's great to say, oh, isn't it wonderful that all these other people were carrying and they were able to end this in 6 seconds? How about ending it before it even began?
Exactly.
Why are we even talking about, how about no seconds? I'll take no seconds and, 2 additional lives over 6 seconds and the loss of 2 lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. He is Michael Avenatti. Number to call, 702-257-5396. Again, that number is 257-5396 if you want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Steve. Steve, you are next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Steve?
I just want to make a couple of comments, okay?
Yep.
Since man's been alive, he's been killing. And it's almost like human nature. That's the way I'll word it. You can have all red flags that you could possibly do. Now, take all the weapons away. They don't even make them no more, okay? Now, they're still going to be killing, okay? Now, are you going to take bows and arrows away? Are you going to take needles?
Are bows and arrows going to kill? Are bows and arrows going to? No.
Let me talk for a minute.
No, you just said something ridiculous. I'm not going to let you continue. You think 58? You think bows and arrows would have killed 58 people in front of Mandalay Bay? That is a ridiculous statement you just made. Do you think?
Now, wait a minute. 1 man's death is equal to 100 man's death when you take a human life.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you have kids?
Yes.
Okay, so if your kids are in a school and God forbid somebody walks into that school, would you rather them have an AR-15 or a bow and arrow? Answer the question.
I'll say an AR-15.
Okay, then you are a complete moron. No, you're an idiot. No. You're not going to continue when you answer a question that dumb. Michael.
No, I do specifically remember the Constitution of the United States and the Second Amendment, specifically mentioning how bow and arrows were included.
Michael, I'm sorry, but I can't deal with people like that. When I ask somebody like that a question and they answer they would rather have somebody have an AR-15 to execute innocent people than a bow and arrow. How can I respond to that, Michael? How?
Well, I don't know how you can respond to it, but look, let's look at the data. Let's look at the data from around the world and every other country in the world, and let's compare the number of mass shootings and gun violence deaths in the United States to other nations. And you're not going to convince me or anyone else that's rational, intelligent, and reasonable that it's all about mental illness. We don't have our mental illness problem here in the United States is not exponentially greater than in other countries in the world. And let me also say this. If it is, all the more reason why we should have more restrictive gun laws, not less, until we solve our supposed mental illness epidemic here in the United States that so many on the right want to point to. You cannot look at the data and look at the number of mass shootings in other countries compared to the United States and come to any other conclusion other than guns are killing people. They are killing our children. You know, I was talking to my daughters for the last few days, actually, and, you know, I was recalling about when I was in high school, we would do drills relating to the Cold War. Right. We would do drills relating to a potential nuclear attack. Now our kids in school are doing drills relating to what's going to happen if there's a mass shooting. You know, my 15-year-old daughter tells me whenever she starts a new class, you know, a new semester or at the beginning of a year, anytime she walks into a classroom, she immediately looks around to where she would hide if a gunman entered the classroom. I mean, think about how sick this is. This is what we are subjecting our kids to.
That's awful. Yeah, it's awful. We're talking about backpacks that are clear backpacks so people people in the school can make sure you don't have a gun in your backpack. I mean, it's a sad time we're living in. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Michael Avenatti, our guest. Again, that number, 257-5396. Let's go to Jim. Jim, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Jim?
Good morning. Good morning. Is Michael on the line?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Michael, I used to work for Jack Aberall for years. I was a lobbyist for 26 years up in Montgomery County, outside of D.C. About once a month, I call into the program. Congratulations, Mr. Shapiro. I get my political fix because the terms of my release is I can never become a lobbyist or do any type of political fundraising work at all. So, Michael, I wanted to wish you good luck on the upcoming trial that you're going to have, and congratulations on the one that was thrown out of the state of New York. So good luck to you, my friend. What most people don't understand, and I listen to this, is that there's three sides to every story. In your case, the Trump administration is going after you, so good luck. We'll say a prayer for you and your family. Let me get back to the core issue of this whole thing. And I want your Nevada audience to listen to this. The NRA, and the NRA. And that's it.
I hear you, Jim. I appreciate those comments. Michael, do you want to respond to that?
Well, you know, Jim, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. And, you know, I hope your new year is very successful as well. And, you know, it means a lot, your support. And I couldn't agree with you more as it relates to, you know, the NRA and the stranglehold they have on many of these politicians. And they're really setting policy in the United States relating to gun control and guns. And look, our kids should be able to go to elementary school, middle school, and high school and not worry about whether they're going to come home that day, not worry about whether some gunman is going to enter the school and kill them as they're trying to just get an education.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing in America, gentlemen? I mean, think about this. I mean, these kids, they have their entire lives to worry about violence, to worry about, you know, mass murders, to worry about, you know, other violent acts against them. I mean, shouldn't we allow them to be kids? Shouldn't we allow them to at least have 18 years of their life where they don't have to worry when they're at school as to whether they're going to be killed?
And that's a good point. I would say that not just not to worry, but not even to have that thought ever cross their mind. When I was young, when I was that age, I never even considered something like that. And
Same with me.
And in this day and age, with how everything that negative that happens is thrown in your face with social media and with the internet, I would think that the fact that these kids are having to do this is actually putting on early onset anxiety with them.
Yeah. And here's a perfect example where we have a guy call in and he thinks if somebody wants to kill innocent people, he would rather that person have an assault weapon than a bow and arrow. That is the type of moron that Donald Trump is talking about when he says I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and they would still vote for me. The guy has an IQ of about 10. 257-5396 is the number to call. Michael Avenatti is our special guest on the line. Let's go to Charlie. Charlie, you are next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Charlie?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good.
Hey, I agree with a lot of your red flag, everything you guys have stated, but the bad part about this is when are we going to get rid of the black market? You can get a gun no matter what on the black market within a 24-hour period, and nobody can control that. So how do we cure that?
That's a very valid question, Charlie. Michael, why don't you respond to that?
Well, I think if you eliminate the market for legalized firearm possession, I think there's a natural decrease in the black market just by nature of the fact that you're going to eliminate a lot of firearms from the marketplace. And furthermore, I think you have to have more enforcement. I mean, I think we have, pretty significant gun laws in the books on the books right now relating to buying unregistered firearms, buying firearms relating to serial numbers that are removed from the firearm, et cetera. I think we need to have a higher level of enforcement relating to those laws. We need to make that a priority.
Yeah.
But I don't think we just throw up our arms and say, well, since there's a black market, we're just gonna open the doors as wide as possible and let anybody buy a firearm under any circumstances.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to go back to Joe Biden, if I may, because I promised some of our listeners I would go back to this. And we're talking about a subpoena, and if Joe Biden gets a subpoena, and he's kind of walking back his comments a little bit, Michael. And you listen. You've been a supporter of Joe Biden for the main reason, and I respect the reason is that you think it gives the Democrats the best chance to defeat Donald Trump. But this is Joe Biden walking back comments, on Twitter that he made about this subpoena. Here's the original audio from this conversation with the Des Moines Register. Have a listen to this.
Do you stand by your earlier statements that you wouldn't comply if you were subpoenaed to testify in an impeachment trial before the Senate?
Correct. And the reason I wouldn't is because it's all designed to deal with Trump doing what he's done his whole life, trying to take the focus off him.
Doesn't that position you as if you're defying a subpoena, putting yourself above the law?
Well, look. The grounds for them to call me would be overwhelmingly specious. But so I don't anticipate that happening anyway.
Okay, Michael, he has since kind of retracted some of what he said. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I agree with Joe Biden on many, many things. I don't agree with him on everything. And you know what? There'd be something wrong with me if I agreed with any politician on 100% of what he or she said. I disagree with the initial comments that he made relating to this subpoena. I agree with what he said at the end. That's how he should have started the answer, that namely that if they did subpoena him, it would be specious. There'd be no legitimate reason to subpoena him. But look, if they subpoenaed him to testify, and if Chief Justice Roberts, who would preside over a Senate trial, ultimately ordered Joe Biden to come to the U.S. Senate, be sworn and testify, then that's what he's got to do. And he's got to respect the rule of law, and he's got to respect that decision. And he would have to come and testify truthfully and completely in response to questions. And that's what he should do. And that's what every witness should do in order to testify, including Pompeo and Bolton and Mulvaney, and the list goes on and on.
I agree, and nobody's above the law. I think we all agree on that. Take the subpoena, testify, and if you are truly innocent and there is no legal wrongdoing, then you should have nothing to worry about. Guest Michael Avenatti, number 702-257-5396. We do have some other callers on the line that want to discuss gun control, so I'll take some of those callers now. Let's go to Anthony. Anthony, you are next on the Vegas Take. You're on with Michael. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Anthony?
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, I have a quick question. Did I actually hear you do an interview with Mark Levin like yesterday or the day before?
That was a rerun of a show we did several months back.
We played a best of.
I applaud you. I applaud you for having that on there. You know, sometimes I listen to you and I totally am just going crazy, not agreeing with anything you say. And then you turn around and you've got these amazing shows where I'm going, oh, my gosh, this guy's got it. So I want to thank you for that.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot,
I
Anthony.
appreciate your kind words. But, Anthony, let me just say this. I want some of our listeners disagreeing, but keep this in mind. If it's a show where you just agree with everything we say, then, well, that wouldn't really be much of a show then. I think it's important to say things that maybe you do not disagree. Maybe you do disagree on. It doesn't mean you're going to change your mind. But, you know, I'm not one of those people that's going to try to appease all my listeners, Anthony. I hope you do understand that. I appreciate your kind words.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I so appreciate that because we need more shows like you that do offer both opinions.
Thank you.
And
that's what we try to do.
You're a little tough on some of us sometimes if we have a different opinion to you.
But Anthony,
that's
you sound like a smart guy, Anthony. Listen, somebody just called in and said that they would rather have somebody walk into a school with an AR-15 than a bow and arrow. That's not the kind of guy that I'm just going to say, okay, thank you for the call, we appreciate it. That's just not.
Let me tell you, I'm not agreeing with this guy, but let me tell you, if I had the choice with someone with an AR-15 at the front of a room and a guy with a bow, an accomplished guy with a bow, I'd take my chances on the AR-15. And let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because a bow is more accurate.
I'm going to let Michael respond to that, Anthony. Michael, go ahead.
Look, I'd take the guy with a bow. I don't care how accomplished he is with a bow and arrow over anybody with an AR-15. I don't understand this. I don't understand this.
Random. Their AR-15 is random, and I get the danger in that. A lot of innocent people get hit, even if he's trying to go after one target.
But at close quarters?
10, 15, 20 feet, yeah.
All right, Anthony.
Let's get back to thank you so much for being on the show, both of you. But regarding the whole gun thing in the NRA, do either of you know why the NRA was started?
Go ahead, Michael. I'll let you address that.
Well, I don't know exactly why it was started. Initially, it was, I believe, designed to protect hunters' rights. I've got no issue with that. But I'll tell you what, I know what the NRA has become over the last 30 years, and that is a group.
Not talking about this. So let me tell you.
I know, but I'm concentrating on where we are right now in American society as it relates to gun.
And that's why my question to you is pertinent. The NRA was designed to protect innocent people against bad people. Mostly, it was to protect the black population from the Ku Klux Klan. Look it up. I'm not wrong on this. And now, if you take guns away from innocent people, that leaves innocent people sitting ducks in situations like churches.
All right, I get your point,
where they have
Anthony.
the no gun zone.
Anthony, I get your point. We're up against a hard break. I want to give Michael a chance to respond to that. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, look, I'm going to go back to what I've said consistently, which is I am not advocating for the elimination of all handguns. I'm not advocating for the elimination of all guns in America. I think it's a question of reasonableness. I think there are many laws and regulations that we can pass that are reasonable accommodations that still allow people to own and operate firearms, but at the same time, we take protections to protect many of our most vulnerable in society, including kids.
Yeah, well said, Michael. I appreciate it always you taking some time to join us. It just seems like this hour goes by so fast. But thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Michael. We really appreciate it.
And, Michael, it looks like Jason Garrett is going to be fired by the Dallas Cowboys. We've been talking about that. Who do you think will be the next Cowboys head coach,
Good
Michael?
question. Yes.
Well, first of all, I hope he is let go while his contract's up. I hope his contract's not renewed because he's been the coach, of course, for 10 years, and I think he's wasted – Jerry's wasted a lot of time by having him as the coach. And frankly, I think a big reason why Garrett has remained in that position is because Jerry wants somebody that he can, that he can order around and that will take his advice. And I think Jerry really wants to be the coach, the hidden coach, if you will. So I hope he does get rid of Garrett. I hope he brings in somebody that's a strong football coach, and I hope Jerry leaves him alone, although I think it's highly unlikely that he's going to do that. I don't know who he's going to bring in, but I hope it's a real coach, and I hope Jerry, leaves him alone. Otherwise, I don't think Jerry's going to win another Super Bowl for the balance of his life.
Maybe Biff is a candidate. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The Trump maybe hire somebody from the Trump administration. Anyway, Michael, all seriousness, always appreciate it when you take the time to join us. Been a fun hour. Have a great week, my friend, and we will catch up with you next week.
Thanks, fellas.
All right,
thanks a
there
lot,
you go.
Mike.
It's attorney Michael Avenatti. Always a lively hour. I'm sorry. I still cannot believe that there are people out there that are calling into this show that say if their daughter or son was in a classroom and, God forbid, somebody tried to execute your children, you would rather have that person carrying an AR-15 rather than a bow and arrow. I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it what it is. How dumb of a person do you have to be to make an ignorant statement like that? It's ridiculous. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break.
You have to be a big Hunger Games fan and Robin Hood fan.
I guess so. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, boy, you want to talk about a tragedy. A family executed, basically, at the corner of Desert Inn in Durango at the hands of a man driving recklessly. 4 people dead. 2 kids are in critical condition. How the hell did this happen? We're going to discuss that coming up next. You are listening to The Vegas Take.